The conflict with Karen and the HOA reached an even more dangerous stage when HOA security targeted a weapon at my head at the farm entrance, completely unaware of who they were confronting. What they failed to realize was that my spouse was a federal tactical leader, trained to manage threats with precision, calm, and strategic authority. This misjudgment, like so many before it, would soon illustrate the devastating consequences of arrogance and ignorance. It began on a brisk morning, with fog rolling over the fields and the farm entrance clearly marked and monitored. Karen, emboldened by her previous attempts to interfere with property, arrived with a small group of HOA security officers. They were intent on asserting control and, in a display of intimidation, drew a weapon, aiming it directly at me as I approached the entrance. Their assumption was simple: threat equals compliance. What they failed to anticipate was the layered network of preparation, legal authority, and tactical readiness that I had established. From the moment the weapon was drawn, my spouse assessed the situation. Every movement, every posture of the HOA officers was observed with meticulous precision. She did not react impulsively. Instead, she positioned herself to neutralize the threat without escalation, maintaining legal authority and public visibility. The presence of surveillance ensured that every action by the HOA was recorded, protecting both herself and the property from false claims or misinterpretation. Karen, observing from a distance, dialed emergency in desperation, hoping to escalate the situation. She expected immediate enforcement in her favor, but the officers who arrived quickly recognized that the property was under lawful control and that any interference could lead to serious liability. The tactical demeanor, authority, and preparedness displayed by my spouse immediately shifted the balance. Karen's assumed power evaporated in the face of competence and legal backing. As the confrontation unfolded, my spouse implemented subtle but decisive measures to ensure control. Gates were locked and monitored remotely, access points were secured, and pathways were adjusted to prevent any further intrusion. The presence of the weapon was neutralized not through aggression but through a demonstration of authority, strategic positioning, and the visible consequences of unlawful action. Every movement by the HOA officers was countered by preparedness, legal documentation, and controlled observation. Karen's frustration grew as her calls escalated into panic. She attempted to intervene directly, shouting commands and gesturing for her security officers to advance. But each attempt was systematically blocked by the structures of control and preparation in place. The officers, initially aggressive, quickly realized the futility of their position and the risk of escalating a confrontation with a federal tactical leader. Slowly, the standoff dissipated, leaving Karen and her security team humiliated and powerless. To ensure the lesson endured, additional safeguards were implemented. Surveillance coverage was expanded, perimeter monitoring enhanced, and tactical protocols rehearsed and reinforced. Access points to the property were fortified, and legal documentation prominently displayed to prevent any future misinterpretation. Karen's repeated misjudgments had created an opportunity to demonstrate the full scope of strategic, lawful authority, and the lesson would not be forgotten. By evening, the farm entrance stood calm and secure. The attempted show of force by Karen and the HOA had achieved nothing beyond exposing their ignorance, overconfidence, and lack of preparation. Neighbors and local officials who observed the events quickly recognized the pattern. Arrogance and assumed authority are always vulnerable to those who prepare, plan, and act strategically. The incident became another defining moment in the saga. Karen's repeated attempts to assert dominance had failed spectacularly, reinforcing a clear message: threats, weapons, and panic cannot override lawful authority and tactical preparation. The farm, entrance, and surrounding areas remained fully under control, and Karen had once again learned, painfully, that misjudging authority carries consequences that are both immediate and unavoidable. By nightfall, the farm was quiet, but the lesson resonated throughout the community. Intrusion, aggression, and ignorance will always meet calculated, strategic, and lawful response. Karen's escalation had failed, leaving her exposed and humiliated, while my spouse's authority and tactical mastery had been demonstrated unequivocally. The message was clear: authority is exercised with foresight, strategy, and composure, not assumed through arrogance or the drawing of a weapon.